Hello there, and welcome to The Open Road. I'm your host, Megan, also known as Rootless Adventure Company. I am a full-time outdoor adventurer and creative entrepreneur on a mission to make every moment of this beautiful life count. As someone who has built a life around travel after leaving my hometown for the very first time at 18, I've learned that we can truly do anything we set our minds to in this lifetime. I help people just like you and I live a fulfilling life that prioritizes our health, our happiness, and our adventurous bucket lists. In today's episode, I'm going to be interviewing Jillian from OffSheGoes. Jillian is an outdoorsy Canadian flight attendant, creative entrepreneur, and coffee connoisseur. When she's not in the air helping you fly safely, you can find her exploring new destinations, cozying up with a book in the corner of a coffee shop, or documenting her travels to share with her audience. She is a free spirit, a go-getter, and the most authentic and kind human that I have ever met. So join us as we dive into her experiences, her wisdom, and her advice for travelers and entrepreneurs. Hi, Jillian.
Hi, Megan. That was such a beautiful intro. Thank you.
Well, I'm excited to see you. And I was thinking about the time when I was in Canada, where you live, and had no money and no phone. And you very much helped me out that day.
Oh, but it was such a sin because I was so sick too. It was like
I
we
know.
had to meet up because it was the one time we were going to cross paths, but I'm sure we'll cross paths again. But I was so sick with laryngitis and everything, but I'm like, I need to go on this hike. I need to
I
meet Megan
know.
in person.
Yeah. So you are from Kelowna, British Columbia. What was it like growing up in Kelowna?
So I grew up on the west side, so being on the bridge is a big thing over here. If you don't know, you know.
Oh.
But yeah, so I grew up in West Kelowna, and honestly, it was an outdoor adventure for a kid. Like, we lived in a cul-de-sac. We grew up, spent hours and hours just outside playing. We'd play tag. All of the neighborhood kids would play together. We would build tree forts up in the back hills because we lived up on this hill. So we'd find broken branches and create all these structures, and we'd just be out there for hours. The only time we'd come in is if we basically had to eat lunch or drink some water. That was like really, really cool. And I didn't realize how lucky I was until I left for the experiences that I bring up. Like, I learned to skate on an actual pond, not at a skating rink. My mom would pick us up on Tuesdays in the middle of the winter, and we'd play hooky and go skiing. We'd go skiing. She's like, yeah, it's ski day, let's go. If she'd tell the teachers that we had doctor's appointments or something, and we'd go skiing. So it was just it was really great.
Oh, I love that. When did you start traveling?
I was super lucky to go on a family holiday at an early age, but like, we would go camping and stuff a lot. But the biggest shift for me was when I was 7. I actually went down to the Baja, where you are, I believe, right now.
Yes.
My mom had booked a last minute trip down to San Jose del Cabo, and that was back when, like, Mexico down there, the highway was one lane each, and we'd actually like stop in a car because cows would be crossing the highway. So I know it's changed a lot since then. But
A little.
I just remember, like, I was 7. I was mesmerized by the different foods, the artwork in the farmers markets. I remember this little girl, like, I vividly remember this little girl sitting on her steps, and she said, "Hola, amiga," and I said it back, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's kids that speak other languages out there. So this opportunity, like, it eventually led me to compete in the local ambassador program, because like the if you won, you were able to go to the sister city in Japan. I ended up applying for Rotary Exchange in high school, where I ended up living in Switzerland. I took a semester abroad in university to live in China. Like, it literally started opening the world up to me, and I'm so grateful for that.
Oh, I love that Baja gave you that experience. That's so cute.
It was pretty amazing.
So you traveled a lot when you were young, and then you decided to become a flight attendant. When did you decide that you wanted to become a flight attendant?
So I had been thinking about it during high school. My inspiration was actually from a family friend of ours. It was when I was in middle school. I'd always go watch my brother play volleyball up at the high school. And there was this lady that would always kind of bustle in during the middle of the games, and people would look at and they'd be like, "Hey, Tish, where'd you come from this time? And she was a flight attendant, and she would always respond back giggling. She's like, oh, I was in Shanghai today, or I was just came back from Sydney. And I just thought it was so cool that she could live a totally normal life, but still travel all over the world. So I'd thought about it, but honestly, it wasn't until I was in university where I was still like, bartending, serving, and all of that kind of stuff. And yes, I was getting my degree, but I realized everything that I was saving my money up for was to travel. So I was like, well, if I'm ever going to save money for anything else, like I may as well get a job that lets me travel essentially for free so that I can
Good
actually
thought.
save for other things. So like it literally just sort of came down to that being like, what is my priorities? I love traveling. I love exploring. So let me find a job that can help me do that. So
Well,
it's
that
literally,
is
yeah, I was going to say, so it's like after I paid for my entire 4-year degree that I decided that I would do something that didn't require one.
well, hey, some people get a degree, start working, and then completely change their mind. So it is
Yeah.
what it is. Or change their degree 700 times. Who cares? What was the process of becoming a flight attendant like from that moment?
So I know a lot has changed because I've been a flight attendant for over 10 years now. But I'd applied at the end of university in my final semester and actually gotten hired with this company, with a company. And they were basically like, you have to quit university if you want to be a part of our training. And I had 2 courses left. So I was like, well, that's not going to work. But they just said, just reapply again. So that's the thing is you can constantly reapply every 6 months. The Rolodex essentially changes. So if you haven't heard back in the first 6 months, just apply again. So I did, and I ended up getting hired with a startup company there. So it's the online application, then there's a phone interview, then you're invited for a group interview. Meanwhile, I'm living in Kelowna. All these interviews and everything are happening in Toronto. So I'm footing the bill to fly
Oh,
out to Toronto for this. Not fun.
wow.
Yeah, they don't pay for you to do that.
I hope
So
there's Zoom calls nowadays.
I think there is a lot more stuff online, especially since like the pandemic. They really reeled things in a bit for being able to do things online first to get you through. So I'd invested all this money to get through. They do like a medical test after you pass the group interview. If everything is cleared that way, then you go into training. Training is generally 8 weeks long for safety related duties. So you're learning things like fighting fires on board, self-defense, all of our aircrafts. You're learning how to deal with hijacking situations, human trafficking, first aid, CPR, evacuation procedures, like unruly passengers, literally like everything that you don't see on a regular boring flight is what we're getting trained on. Like that's a good day. You honestly, if you're only seeing us serve orange juice, yes, that's not really what we're supposed to be there for, but it's a good day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, hopefully nobody hijacks the plane.
Yeah, ideally not.
But if they do, you know what to do, right?
Mhm.
So you're a commuter flight attendant. What does a typical shift for you look like?
Okay, so if anyone doesn't know what a commuter is, it's basically I live in a city that is not my home base. So my home base is in Vancouver and I don't live there. So to start my day, I need to take a plane to fly to my home base. That itself is also not covered by the company since I choose to live away from home base. So some people take the bus to work. I just take a plane to get to work.
Well, that's probably cheaper than living in Vancouver.
Oh my gosh, it is. And honestly, that's why a lot of us do commute. We find like better quality of life elsewhere and then we just travel to get there. So for us, we'll generally stack our flying, doing like 7 days in a row of flying back to back. So then we can go home for a longer chunk of time. But
Okay.
so I'll fly in. If I have to come in the night before, I sleep on my best friend's couch, who is also a flight attendant. We usually get together, have a little dinner, and then I'll start my shift either the next day or else I plan to work night shifts. So I'll fly in during the afternoon and then I'll start working down to Sydney that night at like 11 p.m. or off to Hawaii at, 5.
Fun life. What do you like the most about being a flight attendant?
So there's so many things or else I wouldn't still be doing it after a decade. But I love how every day is different. I didn't realize during COVID when we were laid off how much I hated sitting behind a desk and answering emails. Like I didn't realize that routine was not for me. So I like how every day is different. I get to see glimpses of different cities, but I don't have to rush and get everything done because I know I can come back. So I'll choose that one restaurant or that one coffee shop in Mexico City that I want to check out this time around because I know I'll be able to come back again. And that's such a huge privilege. And then being on board, I love it when you see a family come on board or a couple and they're just glowing because they've been saving up for this trip for a lifetime for so long and they're finally getting to experience it. And it's really beautiful to see the joy of travel. I really love that part of the job as well.
Oh, that's so cute. I sometimes forget what it's like to travel for the first time, so that must be a nice reminder.
It is. It really is.
What don't you like about being a flight attendant?
Well, I mean, there's always things in the jobs that sometimes get you. I would say I hated the question when I first started was, okay, you're a flight attendant, but what are you going to do for a real job? So I hated that a lot of people don't see it as a career, but I'm over that now. But it bothered me a lot when I first started.
Oh, I get that as a bartender.
Exactly, right? You're like, no, it actually pays the bills and makes me really have a great life.
Yeah.
That I hate being blamed for the things that are completely out of our control. So like if there's a lightning storm, nothing can happen because nobody can move because there's a red alert, but like we're blamed for that delay, or the de-icing facility has a line because there was a foot of snow outside and we're like, well, we didn't cause the snowstorm. So it's just people are always looking for someone to blame. So you need to have thick skin because we are the face of whatever problem is out there. So I wouldn't say that's my favorite part of the job either.
And when those things are happening, you're not getting paid either, correct?
Percent of the time we are not being paid. If we are still at the gate and the door is open and we haven't started moving, so like especially like anything that happens during boarding, you're right, we're not being paid. So generally we have to be the nicest when we're using our volunteer hours.
Wow. That takes a special human to be able to do that. What are some of the most memorable moments or experiences that you have had during your job as a flight attendant?
So last year was a huge one. I was up in the flight deck or the cockpit drinking coffee during a G3 solar storm. So I'm a bit of a Northern Lights nerd. And this was basically when it's not just north, like there was purples and reds and greens just exploding over the sky, and we're just watching up in the pitch black as we're flying from Toronto to Vancouver. So that was a really, really cool experience to see, basically being surrounded by the Northern Lights.
Wow.
Yeah, that one I reminisce on all the time. Like I love that because it took me quite a few years to be able to see them from the sky, but that time was incredible. Learning to surf in Lima with my best friend because we used to do that regularly together when we were based out of Toronto.
Ooh.
And hiking the Kokora Valley in Colombia because we ended up getting a 96-hour layover, which is unheard of. Like we never get that long of layovers, but there was a cancellation, so we embraced it.
Oh my gosh. So you had a long time to explore Colombia. That's so fun.
Yeah.
Can you give us a travel tip that you wish everybody knew while they were flying?
Sounds simple enough, but honestly, earplugs and an eye mask for long hauls because we still have to turn the lights on to do our services. And half the time you're not hungry, you're just bored. That's why I feel like people are eating. But having the eye mask on will actually help you sleep so much better because you won't be distracted by the lights or the dings that always happen for when people are calling us. So always pack your plugs and eye mask and put your seatbelt over top of your blanket or your hoodie or whatever when you're sleeping. So when the seatbelt sign comes on, we don't have to wake you up.
Ooh, that's a good one. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your time at home. So you're typically on the road for like 7 days and then you get to go home for or maybe not 7, but a period of time, and then you go home for like a week or so. Well, what do you do when you're at home?
Totally. So I'm actually now that we've got our house in the Okanagan, I'm totally a homebody. Like I love being home because I'm actually an introvert, believe it or not. After a week on the road and constantly talking to people, I do need that time to decompress. My first day is definitely morning coffee, laying on the couch, turning on some TV, cuddling with my dog Luke, and just like decompressing. But it only usually takes, a day for that. And after that, I'm the gym, I'm hiking, paddleboarding. The summer has so many activities to do, but in the winter, I've really gotten into cold plunging as well. So Okanagan Lake, like I'll meet up with some friends. We'll go out and do that there. And yeah, it's just honestly trying to be outside as much as possible. We just bought a pop-up camper so that we can start camping early
Yeah.
season. We're going this weekend and I'm so excited about
Yes.
that.
Where are you going?
Just in the Okanagan as well. We figured for our first trip with the camper, we should be within an hour radius of home in case things go bad. It's not like we're way out in the boonies, but just a little north of the Okanagan.
What types of activities are on your bucket list?
So funny enough that you asked this question because I actually have a physical bucket list from when I was 16. It is like, I don't know if you can see that here, but it is torn and tattered.
Oh,
And I've carried around, well, I guess almost 20 years now. I've been carrying this around with me to check out a bunch of random things. Some are like super exciting, some are not exciting, but like a few things that are still on here that I haven't checked off yet include dog sledding, competing on Survivor or The Amazing Race. I love reality TV and I would love to meet Jeff Probst and compete on Survivor.
I'm rooting for you. Oh, that's on my bucket list too.
Okay, maybe we need to talk a little more about that after.
We do.
See a Broadway show, and then simple things like do laundry in a laundromat, like one of those ones that just like you see in the movies. Turn around, I just want to do that. I've never done it.
I love it.
So yeah,
Perfect. You made that when you were 16. I love that. I think everybody should make a physical bucket list.
there's just something so satisfying about checking it off and adding the date. Like it's been a bit since I've checked something off, but this is a reminder to definitely cross a few things off this summer.
Can you share an item that you've recently crossed off your bucket list, or a few?
So I all winter did not cross anything off, which is like now is bringing close to home, being like, okay, we got to make things happen. But I actually put save someone's life on here, and I was like, how am I ever going to do that? But it kind of happened last year when we were camping.
Ooh.
We were down in Costin and on a river camping spot. And it's like the river's rushing pretty quickly, like fairly quickly if you're not a strong swimmer. But we were in a pocket that had no movement of water. And there was this man in his 70s who says he comes to this location all the time. So he was swimming against the current because that's how he gets his exercise. So we're standing sort of from our little safe area watching him go, and he's just slowly not keeping up with the current, getting pushed towards like the edge where like all the rocks and like kind of waterfall is. And we're like, me and my friend Paul were like, I don't think he knows that he's not keeping up with it anymore. So as this guy goes, he realizes he's kind of in like where the water starts getting white. He's kind of trapped on this rock. And we're like, we need to help this guy. So we ended up like getting a lasso, getting like a floating device, and we went out and we kind of had to pull him in before because he was like slipping down towards like the edge where all the rocks, like it wasn't a huge waterfall, but like for 75, like it was not recommended. You wouldn't swim there.
Yeah.
So I
wow.
guess maybe we'd consider that as saving.
I would consider that.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about what would have happened if you did not pull him out.
Yeah, if we weren't there, I think it would have been a pretty big problem for him. So I'm just glad that we were.
Yeah, me too. How do you prioritize your bucket list when you're traveling? Since most of your, I guess not all your travel is, you're like told where to go, but the majority of it.
So that's the thing is we haven't done a lot of personal travel outside the country lately. Like we're doing a lot of small trips on our personal time. So work, like you said, I can bid for specific destinations, but it doesn't mean that I'm guaranteed to get them. So it's literally what inspires me at the time. Like on here, I have see a Broadway show. So I'm starting to bid New York's for this summer. I can get that done if I go to New York, and that's simple enough. So it's just, I will sort of focus my work around if there's any things that I can check off.
What is the best experience that you've checked off your bucket list so far?
Okay, so I put a couple of them down because they give me the feels in a different way. But I said fly a plane. And no, I do not have my license, but I was able to fly over the Alps when I was a student in Switzerland. I got taken up in a small Cessna and was able to actually like control and fly over the Alps. So that was super cool.
That is so cool.
Crowd surf, I always thought was going to be fun. Like I started writing this when I was 16.
Yeah.
So I crowd surfed at a Kings of Leon concert in 2009. And I used to be obsessed with Prison Break, the show, like years ago. So I always wanted to go to a prison. So
Okay.
I ended up working at 3 different prisons for 3 years when I was in university. So I
Wow.
can't believe, but I actually checked that off too.
Well, hey, it's on the bucket list. You have to do it.
Totally.
All right. Well, I want to hear more about some of the best adventures you've gone on. So let's do a little rapid style Q&A. Answer these in one word, one sentence max. Ready. What is the best hike that you have been on?
The West Coast Trail on Vancouver Island.
Ooh. What is the best outdoor adventure that you've been on?
Skiing at a mountain in Switzerland where we went up in France, down in Switzerland, up in Switzerland, down in France.
Ooh, that's so cool. What is the best travel experience that you have had?
Hiking the Kokora Valley, staying in a coffee finca.
What is the best hotel you've ever stayed at?
The Fairmont in Maui.
Fun. The best restaurant you've eaten at?
Lamar Cevicheria in Miraflores, Lima.
Best noodles you've ever had?
Ooh, best noodles I've ever had. Oh my gosh, there's so many. But right now, I'd say Ramen Butcher in Vancouver.
Ooh, okay. What is the best coffee shop that you have visited?
For actual coffee, Craft 42. For ambiance, Deneen Coffee Shop or My Little Melbourne.
Is Craft 42 the one that I went to when I was in Kelowna? It was like on a main street next to a bread shop or connected to a bread shop.
No, I think that one, oh my gosh, what is it called? Oh, I know exactly the place that you're talking about. I can see it right now. It'll
I've
come back
actually
to me.
been meaning to ask you what that was called because I forgot, but I liked it.
It wasn't Analog, but it was DeVille.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. That's
Yeah,
exactly what it was. Okay,
super
just
cute there
curious.
too.
What's the best bookstore that you've been to?
So I cheated on this. It's a library, but it is Abbey Library in St. Gallen, Switzerland. Look it up. It's amazing.
Okay, okay. I love Switzerland. The most unique place that you've been to?
India.
Oh,
India
yeah.
is so different than any place I've ever been.
That's so cool. Most adventurous thing that you've ever done?
Skydive in Hawaii or shark dive in Florida.
Ooh, shark dive. That sounds fun and scary. Favorite place you've ever been? You can give me up to 3.
Okay. There's a waterfall in Las Terrenas, the Dominican Republic, that forever will hold close to my heart. Barcelona, Spain, and Budapest, Hungary.
Ooh, okay. I really like Barcelona and Budapest.
It's so beautiful. Like, there's such cool cities.
I know. I love Mexico. I do. But I'm always like, oh, that reminds me of Barcelona. Take me back.
Totally.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about OffSheGoes, your life as a creative entrepreneur. What inspired you to start documenting your travels and create OffSheGoes?
So I always use it as a creative outlet. Like, as much as I love my job as a flight attendant, sometimes it can feel a little monotonous. Like, it is pretty up and down, serving drinks, one place to the next. Like, there's not a lot of creativity that happens with the job, let's just say. So since I'm going to all these cool places, I just wanted to, first of all, document them for myself, like show my parents where I was going, show my friends where I was going. And then I just realized that I actually just loved creating, and looking back on my own stuff inspires me.
What do you love most about OffSheGoes?
I really love the community we're building here. I mean, that's how I met you after all.
Yeah.
Like, it's so cool to actually connect with people with these passions and interests, because I think growing up in a small town, we're not stuck with the friends that we went to school with, but we didn't realize like how many other people out there have passions like ours. So it's been really cool to connect with fellow creators, and I don't know, like people who love waking up for sunrises, the smell of a good book, like hitting the summit after a strenuous hike. Like, sure, social media is a highlight reel, but I feel like I've built some pretty deep connections because of it.
I agree. Yeah. As an adult, it's hard to make friends. And when you're traveling, you can connect with people in other places. All your friends aren't going to be in Kelowna all the time, and they still want to know what you're up to. So,
And people are in different stages of life now too. Like a lot of people I know from my small town is they're married and having kids. And I'm like, that's not where I'm at. So like finding other people that have similar life paths and interests. Like I love that connection of it.
yeah. Can you explain the traveling book club?
Okay, I'll try because this is fresh and new, so it's not like something that is tried and true yet. But basically, the traveling book club, I started as like this is the book I'm reading right now, The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride.
Okay.
So I'm in a physical book club, but I also like half the time it doesn't work because I'm out of town. So I wanted to have a place that like I can discuss books with people. So the whole thing would be is I'll read the book. I'll post about it. I now have a website, the Traveling Book Club headquarters there that we can all interact on. And what I'll do on the inside, there's going to be a little blurb, and it's like one of those library sign out cards. So I'll take this. Once I'm finished, I'll finish it in either, whether it's in the airport waiting lounge, a coffee shop, somewhere. I'll just leave it almost like a little Easter egg to find. And if you find it, then it's basically like yours. You get a keep to read it and then pass it along again. And like slowly we'll start building a roster of who has read it. And then we can connect online and be like, oh my gosh, I found this one in Brisbane and then I brought it on my flight to New York. And it's just going to be constantly traveling, sort of like flat Stanleys. I don't know if you ever had those kids growing up. It was like the little cutout guy. Okay, in Canada,
I
we had
didn't.
this like little cutout. And if you went on a trip, you had to take this little paper and like take pictures in front of little monuments that you went to. So this is
Oh,
my version of it where it's like, okay, well, I found this in, Paris, take a picture, and then we'll just join the community to talk about it. And it's just like connecting more people through books. And I think what I'm going to do as well as I was talking about this with a friend is have stickers that people or the cards that people can also purchase and then put on their own books and be like, this is a part of the traveling book club. And then so maybe one of the days
oh.
I will find one of your books as it is traveling around.
Ooh, okay. That's
And
awesome.
I started to think about it after a lot of the times after a long flight, people will come up to me as they're deplaning and be like, I just finished this book if you want to read it. So they'll give me a book on the way out. And I was like, oh, I would have loved to like connect with the person who had just read it, or because I sometimes
Yeah.
find that you find books right when you need them. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I read The Midnight Library a few months back and it hit me at just the right time. Whereas I know like right now reading it, it might not have hit me as much. So
Yeah, that's true. I think that is really nice too because it's not like, okay, everybody, let's all read this book at the same time. It's just like, hey, if you've read this book, whenever you find it, whenever you read it, just let us know and we can talk about it. I like that.
yeah. And then it just sort of brings things back and then connects and it's like, oh yeah, I found this when I was here. So it's kind of just like just following the trail of where the adventure goes. Because there's always an adventure in a book, but where's the book's adventure actually taking it? If that makes sense.
That is so cool. I love that. So you say social media is a highlight reel, which is true, but I feel like you specifically are very good at sharing the good and the bad while still being positive. You're just very authentic, I think, through your content. So how do you remain authentic as a creator?
Oh, well, thank you. Because I do strive for that because I don't want it to be a highlight reel. Like you said, like you want to show this authenticity. So I create what I want to consume. I want to consume realness. I don't want to see like the toxic positivity of everyone being so positive all the time, but I also don't want to see the negative all the trying to just be real is how I do it. And it's like there was actually a creator that I got this from. She does Reiki. I wish I had her handle right now because it's been amazing. But how I like hype myself up for the day is that you go in front of the mirror in the morning and you say, I love you, I love you, I love you, staring at yourself 3 times. And then you say, today's going to be a great day, so let's go show the world that. And it's
Oh,
just,
I like.
and it's like, I don't know, but like you have to say it with conviction and it kind of just starts the day off that way. So I kind of want to, the fact that you feel that way about my content really warms my heart because at least somebody's receiving it the way that I want it to be received.
Aw, yeah, definitely. How do you balance work and play while you're traveling, both as a flight attendant and a content creator? Because I feel like when you're doing both of those things, it can be really hard to enjoy your travels too. So, how do you make sure you fit that in?
Okay, so one of my favorite quotes is from Confucius. I'm pretty sure it is. And it's find a job you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life. So that is true for traveling as a flight attendant for me. So that has kept me very, very happy. And my biggest thing for not being overly consumed with content creating while I'm working so I can still enjoy myself is I'll take my phone, I'll film, I'll take pictures, but I don't look at it. Like I don't check the angles, I don't check anything like that. So it's like at the end of the day, whatever worked, and I'll make do with it. So I don't, because I find, which might not work for everyone, but if I'm constantly trying to make sure that everything is going to work, I'll just spend too much time thinking about it. So it's like, okay, if I didn't get a good shot or a good angle, then this wasn't meant to be today.
Yeah,
And
at
that's
least you
sort
have
of
the
how
memory.
that's how I've gone with it.
Oh, I love that. So, you are an extroverted introvert, like you said. You like being around people, but then you need your alone time to decompress. So, how do you practice like self care and mental well being while you're traveling?
Okay, so I've taken up running again.
Oh, okay.
I hadn't run in years. I used to be a triathlete when I was like 15 years ago. So I took up running again. So I'm finding that because the dopamine from running, and then a lot of the time people don't want to run with you because you've just flown for 16 hours. So the idea of a run sounds horrendous to them. So I get my alone time as I'm discovering the city running. And if I stop to take pictures and stuff, like I'm on my own time. So that's a big thing. Solo coffee shop trips. Like I'm obsessed with coffee. I love it. It's a ritual for me. So being able to take my book, go to a coffee shop, that's huge. And the biggest thing is that I've been learning very recently is just how to set boundaries. If it's not something that really resonates with my soul that I want to do, I am fine with saying no now and saying that I won't join people because I'm used to be such a people pleaser that I had to be around everyone all the time. And I realized that it just drains me sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's a good mindset. I think people sometimes hold their adventures on a pedestal and think, I only have this one opportunity to do this here, but you can always go back to places. I like that you have that mentality where you're like, I'm just going to listen to what I need today, and I'm not going to force myself into anything
Mm-hmm.
that I don't feel like doing. What is next on your bucket list that you want to check off?
Okay. So strongly want to get my free diving license. And depending on how long you're staying in the Baja, there is a girl that does free diving courses in Las Ventanas that I've been looking
Ooh,
into. So I'll let you know if that happens.
okay.
Or else in Thailand or the Philippines. I haven't decided yet, but free diving is so fires up my soul right now because the biggest thing is as well as being like I love the ocean. I feel like I'm a revived mermaid again and I just love being in the ocean. And I have my PADI scuba diving course already. You can't fly in an airplane until 72 hours after diving. If you dive
Oh,
within that, you are at risk for getting the bends, which
ugh.
is like a really,
That makes sense.
yeah. So for me, constantly traveling all the time, but a lot of the time my layovers are, 20, 30, 48 hours max. I can't go scuba diving and then go back to work. So with free
Mm.
diving, since you're doing it all in one breath, I could actually still go and discover the ocean as I'm traveling with this job and not be at any risk. So that is my next bucket list item is to be free diving certified.
Ooh, that's so cool. I know that you will do that soon. Where can people keep up with you on your adventures?
Biggest area is Instagram that I'm most active. So at OffSheGoes ___ two underscores. And on that link it'll find you to the traveling book club as well if that's something that you're interested in. And that's it right now because I can't do a million different things. Would I love to start a YouTube? Yes, but
I
that'll be
know,
for
I
a
feel
future
that.
Jill to worry about.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. I'm very excited to have people follow you on Instagram. And thank you so much for chatting with me today. It was a wonderful conversation. You're such a beautiful soul. And I'm excited to put this out into the world.
I'm so grateful for being invited. Thank you so much for having me, Megan. Honestly, seeing your face has just made my day so great, and I can't wait for the day that we get to reunite in person again,
I
because
know.
I know we will. I know that we're going to be connected for a long time, and I just
I
love
know.
everything that you've been putting out into the universe as well these days. It is so inspiring to watch.
Oh, you're so sweet. I am endlessly inspired by you all the time, and you are seriously the most like creative driven person that I know. So I can't wait to see you again one day. It will definitely work out, I promise.
It will. Thank you so much for
Oh,
having me, Megan.
you too. Bye, Jillian.
Bye.
That is all I have for you today. I hope you gained some courage or confidence or learned something new today. If you liked this episode, be sure to rate it 5 stars or leave a review. It would really help me out. And make sure you follow the show at the Open Road Podcast so you never miss an episode. We are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Instagram, all at the Open Road Podcast. Lastly, don't forget to make every moment of this beautiful life count. See you Thursday.